So what sort of things would we work on in that domain? Let me offer 10 examples. This list is not meant to be exhaustive, merely suggestive. There are plenty of other possibilities. I've tried to pick some things that are a stretch, but still seem feasible, and that have steps along the way that should be valuable in and of themselves. In doing this, I want to recognize that forecasting the progress of science and technology is a dicey business. Even Isaac Asimov got it wrong sometimes. In his Foundation trilogy, he imagined a future in which we had warp-speed intergalactic travel, and we had invented psychohistory, which could accurately predict the course of human history over the span of 30,000 years. And yet, as my friend Tom Hahn pointed out, his future civilization needed a planet to store the accumulated knowledge of mankind. Why? Because the knowledge was, of course, recorded in printed books. How else would you record it? So with that caveat, here are the top 10 things I'd like to see at SIGGRAPH in the next 36 years. Let's start with natural 3D input. Today, we mostly interact with 3D worlds by looking at a 2D display with our hands on a mouse, not the virtual object, with no tactile feedback. Instead, input should be based on the way we have evolved to interact with the world, seeing and feeling and moving the object as if it were real. There's been promising work along these lines, from the early work by pioneers like Myron Kruger and Bill Buxton to the more recent examples shown here with multi-touch displays, data gloves, and mixed reality interfaces. But we still have a long way to go, and we're probably going to need some new hardware technologies to get there. We can now make pretty much any computer graphics image we want, but it's still really hard to do. But these are artist tools. When you use them, your brain is directly hooked up to your muscles so you can feel your way along. Our tools tend to look like this. Instead of feeling your way along, you have to take that feeling of what you want and translate it into an analysis of which controls to manipulate, change those controls, wait, and repeat. That's not an artist's model of art, that's an engineering model of art. Our tools need to feel more like brushes. In this regard, I think we're at about the Model T stage. The Model T made the automobile ubiquitous, but starting it was so complex that dealers went to your house to train you. Today, you just turn the switch. What made the difference, though, was not just better technology. It was using that technology to move from an engineering model of driving to a driver model of driving. I'd like to be able to interact with a humanoid robot that has a personality, and more than that, a particular personality, one that is true to a unique individual character. And I think this is in our field and not just robotics, because it involves animation and it involves visual interaction with machinery. I'd like a program that can help me draw, that has an understanding of what I'm drawing and uses that to give me higher level controls. So I want a drawing of a tennis player, like that one, but get rid of the logo on the shirt and stretch more to hit the ball there, etc. Ivan Sutherland's Sketchpad program was a kind of illustration assistant, and the recent lineogrammer work is along these lines. And I particularly loved both the snakes paper and the soft scissors paper, both of which use computer vision techniques to improve interactive matte extraction. These are particularly good examples of the power of using artificial intelligence for augmentation. And I'd like a better math and science assistant. It could be an invaluable professional tool and also a great way to teach. Mathematica is a great math engine, but the interface could be a lot better. The recent MathPad and MathPaper work uses hand-drawn equations and graphs to drive the interaction with Mathematica, and it's a great start. How do we interact with massive sets of data? How do we find non-textual information like images, or navigate social networks, or search through video? There's been some really interesting work on searching for images based on a sketch, for browsing through large collections of photographs, and this recent work at Cornell. Here, this map was created completely automatically with no knowledge of geography, just from geotags of Flickr images, including automatically choosing the most photographed sites and picking a representative image from each site. The coastlines and cities are evident only because people tend to take pictures there. When we have cheap, large displays that can show real-time, high-resolution animations, then telepresence can start to become convincingly immersive, so that a teleconference would seem just like sitting across the room. To make it feel truly immersive, we should show this remote site in 3 dimensions, and that would mean 3D cameras and computational photography. A few early examples of work along these lines are the cave at the University of Illinois and virtual space teleconferencing work done at places like Bell Labs and UNC. Walls could become visual portals. This could be used for a virtual office, or you could have dinner with your family while traveling, or your grandmother who couldn't physically go rock climbing with you could experience what you're seeing and hearing in real time. But what would really change things would be an augmented reality display. It should be high quality in resolution, frame rate, and dynamic range, true 3D, not just stereo, unobtrusive so you don't have to wear special glasses, registered so the virtual object is fused with the real object, and personalized so that each person can see a different view. Here's a possible way to do this. Imagine that when you have cataract surgery, the replacement lens has a MEMS ring around it that can change focus in response to parallax. This would fix farsightedness. And perhaps you could zoom in beyond normal vision. But what you really want is to add a high-quality display that could superimpose images on the real world. You might also be able to do this with contact lenses. And last year, researchers at the University of Washington took a step in this direction by building a contact lens with an imprinted electronic circuit and a small image array. How would we design and use such a device? I'd like a virtual tour guide that could take me around a new city, walking alongside me and pointing out sites, translating signs, etc. Or a theme park filled with personalized virtual characters you could interact with, or a computer game in which virtual characters inhabit the physical world. My last item is a proposal for a new grand challenge for us, one that combines most of these unsolved problems, and that is realistic augmented reality. Here's what I mean by that. A completely immersive virtual world with high-quality computer graphics images fused seamlessly with the real world and the ability to interact with it in a natural way. There would be a lot of great applications for this, but let me illustrate with one example: surgery. Basically, I like my surgeon to be able to operate with X-ray vision. Several years ago, UNC built a prototype system to view ultrasound within a body using a head-mounted display. And the headgear was cumbersome, and the display, fusing, and latency weren't great, but the idea is brilliant. And once we have a great augmented vision and natural 3D input, this idea could become a practical reality. Doctors could see MRI data fused with the patient's body as they operate, and that could be merged with real-time data collected by various sensors. And they could use other senses like sound for hearing blood pressure and pulse, or tactile feedback so that cutting a nerve might offer more resistance. These augmented surgeons could operate with superhuman abilities and superhuman judgment. And if you could digitize the geometry at a remote site at interactive rates and at high resolution in 3D, then a surgeon could just as well be doing this operation remotely so that the best care in the world could be provided anywhere in the world.